Hi there. This is Belinda Colleen, and I am interested in discussing something that a lot of eBay resellers are worried about, myself included a little bit, but I've dealt with it, and I just thought it would be nice to talk with other people about it that are also reselling on eBay, especially. Um, the name of this little talk will be eBay sellers resist overreacting. And what I'm talking about is the change in the policy about promotion. This has been something that a lot of people have been discussing for months now. And I think the thing we have to always remember is that we are entrepreneurs. And by definition, entrepreneurs are always in control of their business because it's a business. Even though sometimes when you have a big source like eBay that you're getting a lot of traffic from, a lot of customers from, it's easy to forget that you own your own business and that you don't need eBay. I mean, granted, eBay is my only platform right now, but that's going to change. And not because of what happened with the promotion thing, but it just kind of made me think about, I'd been thinking about it anyway, but it just reaffirmed the fact that I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket. It's easy to get lazy and just sort of like, oh, okay, eBay's going to give me all the traffic I need, and all I have to do is play around with the promotion and the pricing and that type of thing. But the reality will always be that we're always going to have to adapt to different scenarios. And we are going to have to adapt to platform changes. We're going to have to adapt to sourcing changes. We're going to have to adapt to the economy. And that's what entrepreneurs do. And employees just wait for things to happen and then complain. And I've done that. I've done that so many times. But I have to say, there's a lot of freedom in being an entrepreneur. Um, I know a lot of people that are on eBay, retired from corporate jobs. They did great in corporate America. And now they're maybe for the first time in their life, they're being entrepreneurial. I've myself have been an entrepreneur, a corporate person, an entrepreneur, corporate person. I think I never felt completely satisfied in either role. The lazy part of me wanted to be an employee and get the benefits. And I mean, it made sense. And I did it. And I'm not saying that employees are lazy. They're not. I think I just wasn't courageous enough at times to want to be self-employed. And so I've gone back and forth, and I've seen the good and the bad with both. And honestly, as a retired person, I really value my freedom. And even though it means I'm going to have to I'm going to have to adapt quickly. I mean, the good news and the bad news is that I have the freedom to make those choices now, which means I have to take the responsibility on if I want to stay in business. And I do. I enjoy reselling, and I realize that it will always evolve. And that's the thing. I mean, there are times I wish I could just like hit a button and things would stop evolving so quickly. And I feel like we all kind of go through that, but it's not going to happen. So we just have to come to terms with it and embrace it and say, that's the challenge. That's the fun. We have to always, recognize the fact that changes will always be happening. And it's up to us to be smart enough to not resist them and to go with the flow and make our decisions based on what's best for our business. Getting angry with eBay or Donald Trump or anybody, whoever you're blaming for the current, situation in our economy, all that matters really is looking at yourself and saying, okay, this is the hand I've been dealt. So now what am I going to do? What's the best move for me to make based on what I want out of this business? I'm retired myself, so I want a certain amount of money and a whole lot of freedom. Not everybody's in that situation. Some people, this is their main, this is their only income, and they've got a family and a lot of people depending on them, and they're in a whole different situation, certainly. So their decision will be different than mine, and or it may be the same as mine for different reasons. But the bottom line is, you have to come to terms with the idea of adapting. And interestingly enough, as an entrepreneur, as a reseller, you have many more options than employees do, because employees basically have, one option: stay and adapt or go. That's it. And as resellers, we can sell on eBay, we can sell on Depop, we can sell on Etsy, we can sell on Poshmark, we can sell on a thrift store, we can start our own website, or we can sell on Shopify. I mean, that's the beauty. There's a lot of ways to resell, so many. And because of that, we're in a unique position. We never have to feel that kind of like the heart palpitations that come along with when you're an employee in a business. And I've been through this several times, and all of a sudden there's a big management shakeup, and you end up with a boss that's, really impossible to deal with, or they just lay you off. All of a sudden, one day you've got income, the next day you don't. To me, that's way worse than being an entrepreneur, where you can shift and change and whatever. Now, I will say, and this is something I've been thinking about, I think I have too many eggs in one basket. I got a little bit lazy and was just coasting with eBay and having fun. And even though I don't think the promotion thing is going to be a big deal ultimately, I think it's just something you adjust to. I think there's a lot of anger associated with a decision that they made, because it kind of felt, like we were being sold a bill of goods. It didn't make sense, I mean, the bottom line is, this whole promotion change with eBay is far-fetched as far as being logical. That I really still think it's a money grab. But what it boils down to is, in the past, you could say, okay, I'm selling this Tommy Hilfiger purse, okay? And because there's a lot of them out there, I'm going to promote it at 6%. Let's say, because you realized it was a competitive situation, you might need a boost from promotion. Well, that's the way it used to be. Starting January 13th this year, the way it will be is that somebody might have looked at your purse because of the promotion that you paid for, but they decided not to buy it. And then maybe 20 days later, another person who did not see that promotional ad that eBay made you pay for, or that you paid for willingly, a completely different buyer will buy that purse, not because of the ad, but because they saw it. And you're still going to be charged that 6%, or whatever the percentage was that you put on there. So the bottom line is, it really is a stretch. I mean, what I've heard was their justification for it was that eBay believes that because someone looked at your purse based on their ad, that boosted the algorithm and probably attracted the other person who finally bought it. Now, that's pretty convoluted for me and a stretch of my imagination. But I can't completely rule it out, and all I really know is that that's the way it is. That's the way it is. So I have two choices. I can adapt to it, or I can get angry about it and stop promoting. And I get it. There are times you want to, die on that hill. You want to stand up and say, no, this is ridiculous. We're not putting up with it. Well, that's an option. And I get it. I mean, I was like that at first. When it first happened, I thought, you have got to be kidding me. I could not believe it. But now, and perspective is everything. And as an older person, you get perspective. You get it. You've dealt with it, you embrace it, you understand it. You don't always embrace it, but embracing it is the easy way to go to calm yourself down. And sometimes I have to do that because I can be very emotional. And being very emotional doesn't always work that well in business. As a business owner, it makes more sense to use your perspective and say, okay, what does this really mean for me? What does this really mean for my profits? Does it really impact me? Or are there things I can do to make changes to minimize any negative impact whatsoever? And, unless it's such a big deal that you just can't live with it, in which case you just leave eBay, which is fine. That is a option. It's a reliable option. There are many places you can sell, but eBay is still the biggest resale beast in the forest. And if you want to be hooked up with all that wonderful traffic they send you, I mean, I'm excluding Amazon because I'm talking about resellers who are largely involved in used goods. I think eBay makes sense until it doesn't. And even though I was irritated by what they did, it's not gonna change my business that much. I mean, the only thing I'm gonna make some modifications. I was really still very chintzy spending money on promotion. I was just spending 2%, on everything I listed. And now I think what I'm gonna do is wait. And with the better items that I list, and I should have been doing this all along anyway, so in a way it sort of forced me to rethink my strategy to the positive, I think. Now I have more incentive than ever to price better and to source better so that I have more unique items that don't need to be promoted. I mean, that's the best situation. Less competition, no need for promotion. More collectible, unique, whatever. And I would much rather take that 2 or 3 or 4% I might have promoted and spent on eBay for this arbitrary advertising fee that, really seems kind of iffy to me right now, and give it to my customer. Give it to them, And I'm not saying you're going to buy customers with 2, 3, 4%, but it's just a little more added incentive to give to your customer on top of the fact that maybe you source better. So if you have little competition and you can give a little more to the customer, it doesn't have to affect you at all. Now, there will be times, and there are many items that I still have in my inventory that they're going to need to be promoted. So I'm just going to promote them. And I'm just going to bite the bullet and say, hey, it's the cost of doing business. I'm not willing to, die on that hill and completely redo everything and change put everything on new platforms all at once because I'm angry at eBay. I'm not going to do that. eBay's doing what eBay's going to do, what all businesses do. I mean, if you're sourcing at a certain place and maybe you make friends with them and, you become chatty, but all of a sudden their prices go sky high. You're not going to source her anymore. I'm not. I mean, I had that situation, an independent thrift store that I used to go to a lot. I became chatty and kind of friendly with the owner, and she went up on her prices a lot. And even though I kind of liked her and we sort of I felt like we were sort of friendly and almost like friends, I stopped going there because it was a business decision. I'm not going to buy her stuff when it's too much. Why should I? I mean, it was a business relationship. your relationship with eBay is a business relationship. It's not the only relationship. It's not, the die all be all or whatever. You can do much more and go to many other platforms if you want to. But just make it a logical business decision that you've made after thinking about your other options and think about what it really means to pay, if you pay a little bit more for promotions. What does it really mean? Think about it that way. Think about the numbers. Don't think about the anger. Think about the numbers. That's all that really matters. I mean, if your ultimate goal is to make X amount of money, that's all you need to think about. And you can always do what most businesses always do when something changes in the economy or your sourcing or whatever. You pass the cost on to your customer. And, the people that survive will have to do that. So all it means is that everybody, all the survivors will be passing the cost on to the customer. Now, there will always be people out there selling things at extremely low prices because they're not professional sellers. They're truly getting things out of their closet or selling their, grandmother stuff or whatever. And they're not business people. They're not doing this for a living. They're just kind of having fun with it. They will always be able to beat you because you're trying to make a living. But fortunately, there's just not that many of them. And they're just selling a bunch of random stuff. And, eBay's going to tweak the formula however they can, And if they lose some people, this is the thing to think about too. Let's say a whole lot of eBay people say, I'm not selling on eBay anymore. I'm not going to do it. I'm mad, because they went up on the promotion thing and it's not fair. Well, I'm not leaving for that because I can work that out. And if a whole lot of people leave, a whole lot of my competitors on eBay leave, that's not a bad thing for me either. You got to think about the ripple effect. How's this going to settle? And that's why I really think that knee-jerk reactions that I can do, I have been known to do at times, are not good. It's much better to just wait and see how things settle out too. What's it really mean? We don't really know yet. Because they evidently did this, they tested it in Europe first and then they just set it up. I don't think it's going to change. They know that they know they've got a lot of leverage in the marketplace and they know that they can do pretty much what they want to a point, and they're going to try everything. So just remember that and try not to make, irrational decisions. I always like to talk about, adapting, because it's something that is always not easy for me. And the older I get, the harder it is. I don't like to adapt. I just want to coast. I want to have fun, but change is the only thing that you can absolutely count on because it's always going to happen. Stephen Hawking, who is, considered one of the greatest minds of our time, said that intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. Interesting. Albert Einstein said the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. I mean, when you think about that, the people that do well in life have the ability to change, whether it's things that happen in their family, things that happen, in their health, in their business, in their job, being able to go with the flow, not take it too seriously, and just realize there's an answer to every question. There's a way to adapt to everything. It could be, a simple adjustment, or it could be that you just have to jump into new waters, whatever. But just realize that nothing's stagnant and you're not either, and your business decisions don't have to be either. You may have a business model set up and you've taken it to heart and you love it, and you might have to change it a little bit, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Changes will always occur, and the people that are practical and recognize it as just the cost of doing business, the cost of participating in the business world. That's all it really is. I mean, in 10 years, I would venture to say that none of us, if we stay in this business, none of us will recognize it 10 years from now. It will be so different. And it's okay. It's going to be a little step here, a little step there, and we just have to be flexible and not get upset. Don't get upset at eBay for doing what businesses do, trying to make as much money as possible. Okay? And you can't be upset with yourself for feeling victimized at times, because sometimes we do feel like a victim of the big guys. But the nice thing about being small is we can change quickly. And if you're retired like me, I can change quickly because it's not a job, it's a business. I could start a thrift store tomorrow. I've thought about that a few times, although I still think online is the place to be right now. But, and there's people wholesaling out there. So there's a million different ways to do this business. Don't get so locked in on one platform or one source or one business model, because it's bigger than that. And if you like reselling, you'll probably always like reselling because it's buying and selling. It's the most basic business in the world. Buying low and selling high. Most basic business model in the world, and it is ours as resellers. So just hang in there. Look forward to new changes instead of being afraid of them. And I'm talking to myself as much as you, because I always have to always monitor my emotions when big changes happen. But I don't even consider the promotion thing to be a huge change. It's just a little bit of an irritation, I think. But anyway, I appreciate your hanging out with me for a while I stand on my soapbox and preach. And I look forward to seeing you again. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye-bye.